If you so happen to click on this video, I'm assuming you probably most likely have read a comic book before. And just like a lot of other products sold, comics have had their fair share of recalls. And if you don't know what a recall is, it is when the manufacturer or the distributor requests for the product to be returned due to a defect or safety hazard. Looking through the history of comic recalls, some in my opinion are just kind of ridiculous, and others are completely justified. Enough of wasting your time, let's get into the first recalled comic. Oh, and I got all the information off recalledcomics.com and Wikipedia. And yes, Wikipedia is a trusted resource. Starting with Action Comics issues 869, released in 2008 by DC Comics. This is probably the most well-known recalled comic to date, so a lot of you probably already heard of it, but the comics were recalled because of the cover. You see what's wrong with the cover? Yeah, neither do I. But DC Comics didn't like how Clark Kent was shown drinking a beer with his S logo being visible. So DC recalled the comic and re-released it with the beer clearly being changed to soda. In my opinion, this was a dumb recall, but hey, it's whatever. All-Star Batman and Robin issue 10 was released in 2008 by DC and the same year that the last comic was released. And if you aren't aware of All-Star Batman and Robin, it was a comic series written by Frank Miller, and not Prime Frank Miller. It was written by Wash Frank Miller, so it's really, really bad. Batman does a lot of villainous things throughout the series, and the dialogue in here is honestly just edgelord dialogue. There's no other way of putting it. It's just edgelord.
What are you, dense? Are you retarded or something? Who the hell do you think I am? I'm the goddamn Batman!
And since the comic has a lot of edgelord dialogue, there's a lot of curse words. And the way the vulgar language would appear on the page is that the word is blacked out like a highlighter. But what happened during printing is that the printing shade of the blackout was a different shade of the actual word they're trying to censor, making the word kind of visible. So because of this, they decided to recall the comic. Like, this in my opinion is another dumb recall, not because of the reason it was recalled, but because it was so easy to avoid. Like, dude, just use Grawlix as like any other comic out there. The next recalled comic on the list, and our first Marvel comic, is Avengers vs. Infinity issue 1. Both the normal and variant issues received recalls. The recalls were due to a printing error. The final page of the issue was missing, making the stories in the comic incomplete. The next recalled comic isn't just a single issue, but a whole trade paperback. Being the trade paperback of Batman, Bruce Wayne, Murderer. If you don't know what a trade paperback is, it is a collection of single issue comics in one book. So for example, one trade paperback could include issues 1 through 5. And this is where the printing error occurred with Bruce Wayne the Murderer. As in the trade paperback, there are 2 issues missing within the book. Due to this, DC recalled the paperback and offered to exchange it with a new one. Here's the chart of the comics that are featured and missing within the recalled paperback. Our first out of many non-DC or Marvel recalls is from Bee and Puppy Cat issue 7 from 2014. I'll be real, I never heard of this comic or the show, but nonetheless, the reason for the recall is still kind of a mystery. The company behind the comic, Boom, just called a printing error for the reason for the recall. The differences between the recalled and re-released versions is that the interior had different artwork and the barcode had a different year, and it included a 10th anniversary Boom icon. Back to the DC recalls. DC Presents Legion of the Superheroes issue 1 was recalled in 2011 due to a printing error. Basically, the chapters presented in the comic were out of order, making the comic very confusing and unreadable. Back-to-back DC comics here, as DC Presents Metal Man issue 1 in 2011, which was the same year as the last comic, was once again recalled due to a printing error. Metal Man was recalled because a lot of the panels had poor image and printing quality. Our next recall is our first recall due to legal reasons. In 2018, Image Comics released the first 2 issues of Dead Rabbit. However, before the release of the first issues, Image released the Ash Can comic of Dead Rabbit. If you don't know what an Ashcan comic is, it is essentially a comic made only to establish trademarks on potential titles and not made to sell. For example, this Thrill comic was an Ashcan comic created, but since the title was already trademarked, the comic was then changed to Wiz Comics. So Image released the Dead Rabbit Ashcan in the first issue in 2018, and they received a cease and desist from a bar of the same name. The bar, called the Dead Rabbit, had created menus to collect comic books. So because of this, the company behind the bar filed the trademark for Dead Rabbit in comics, books, and other things along those lines. Obviously, the comic by Image is clearly using the trademark, so the bar sent a cease and desist to both Image Comics and Forbidden Planet. Forbidden Planet ignored the cease and desist, and Image Comics asked for more time, and went on to release issue 2. After the release of issue 2, the bar then filed a lawsuit, and the comic was quickly cancelled and recalled. A year later, Image released the comic under a new name, now being called Dead Eyes. In 2001, Elektra Volume 2 Issue 3 was released and was quickly recalled for the content within the panels. A nude Elektra was shown with shadows and hand placement covering, her private parts. All in all, it was a pretty tame nude panel, especially compared to some other nude panels. But Marvel didn't like it, so they recalled the comic, and in re-releases, they had her wear underwear. In 1999, DC released a collection of Elseworld stories called Elseworld's 80-Page Giant. And one of the stories included was one of Superman's babysitter called Letitia Lerner. And in the story, little Clark Kent crawls into a microwave and gets zapped. When the president of DC at the time, Paul Levitz, heard of the story, he issued a recall on the comic. And the story itself won an Eisner Award for the best short story. The story was then released in a Bizarro comic, but the reason for the initial recall is still relatively unknown. But I would assume it was because it featured a baby getting hurt, or they didn't want a King of the Hill situation, where some kid would try to replicate the panel. Our next recall is actually due to nothing in the comic itself. Genlock issue 6 was released in June of 2020, and obviously in 2020, the global pandemic started, which caused a lot of problems for a lot of companies. So due to the issues that COVID was creating, DC stopped the production of the comic in the US and Canada. However, the issue did make it over to the UK. I wouldn't really consider this a recall, more of a cancellation, but recalledcomics.com considered it a recall, so here you go, I guess. Once again, another DC recall in the year of 2011, with this one being the New 52 Green Lantern issue 1, with the problem once again being a printing issue, this time with the cover, as there appears to be a bright green teardrop shape on the cover of the issue. Of course, this was a printing mistake, and once DC noticed this, they recalled the issue and re-released it with the teardrop gone. Another Green Lantern recall, with this one being in 2016, with the Green Lanterns issue 6. This is once again another printing error on the cover, but this time the problem is with the title. The title on issue 6 was Family Matters Part 1, which is the wrong storyline at the time. The real storyline that should have been on the cover was Rage Planet Part 6. So when DC noticed this, they recalled that issue and re-released it without the Family Matters tag. In 1998, Cabbage Comics made the comic Hail the Hooters Girl. And yes, this is a real thing. This is once again another recall due to a lawsuit, as Cabbage Comics never got the permission to use Hooters in the name of the title. So the restaurant filed a lawsuit which caused the comic to be recalled. Hero Bearer and the Kid Annual issue 1 was released in 2013 by Kaboom. In the issue, there was a printing error where page 5 of the comic appeared twice, replacing page 7. And also, interestingly, the comic cost a price more, being $4.99 instead of $3.99. Jenny Zero issue 1 was released in 2021 and recalled due to a printing error, as page 12 was missing from the issue. Kid Lobotomy issue 1 was released in 2017 by IDW, and as an incentive to get the comic, they released this gold foiled variant of the comic, but apparently the foil itself was applied wrong and IDW recalled all the foil variants. They released a statement about the recall. League of Extraordinary Gentlemen issue 5 was released in 2000 by DC Comics. And this is definitely the most infamous comic recall, as the reason for the recall was due to a douche ad. In the comic, a real ad for a douche ad made by Marvel Co. was featured. Once again, Paul Levitz noticed this and had the issue recalled, just in case this led to litigation from the rivals Marvel Comics. In the re-release, Marvel Co. was changed to Amaze. This recall was later then referenced by the writer Alan Moore in Top 10 issue 9, with the newspaper reading Miracle Douche Recall. This is definitely the most infamous comic recall, and definitely one of the most expensive recall comics, with the average price of $848. And oh, by the way, if you think you have any of these recalled comics, I would highly recommend checking recalledcomics.com to see if they're worth anything. When The Matrix was released in 1999, Warner Brothers had a plan to have a promotional comic tie-in, with every member in the audience receiving a comic book. However, the comic was recalled due to the mature content featured in the comic. Even though the movie is rated R, that makes sense. Some copies happened to get out to the public though, and now are pretty expensive. In 2001 and 2000, DC released a lot of classic comics under the mantle, Millennium Edition. And one of the comics involved in the series was the first issue of Mad magazine. However, in this re-release issue of Mad, the copyright notice of the original publication company, EC Comics, was missing. Additionally, DC credited the creators and Indica to themselves instead of EC Comics. DC also didn't credit the writer and creator of Mad, William M. Gaines and Harvey Kurtzman. Because of the issues mentioned, the comic was recalled and quickly corrected to have the right credits and copyright information. Mind the Gap issue 2 was released in 2012 by Image Comics and was recalled due to a printing error. A lot of the panels were darkened. Morning Glories issue 26 was released in 2013, once again by Image Comics, and was recalled to once again a printing error. The issue was a missing page and was replaced by a page from the previous issue. Mouse Guard Legends of the Guard Volume 3 issue 3 was released in 2015 and was recalled due to a printing error. However, this is a more interesting printing error, as the wrong paper was used for the cover. Normal paper stock was used for the cover, making it more thin and having a more of a matte finish. Phonograms of Single Club issue 5 was released in 2009 by Image Comics and was recalled due to a printing error. The barcode on the comic was wrong, as the barcode for issue 4 was used instead of issue 5. Riot issue 2 was released in 2014 by Valiant Comics. A variant of the comic was supposed to feature a push-out mask on the cover. However, the cover was missing the dashes and string holes on the mask, so it made it impossible for the mask to be pulled out. Valiant recalled this issue and released a variant with the mask being able to be taken out. Saga issue 41 was released in 2016 by Image Comics and was recalled due to a printing error. The cover of the comic was printed too dark, and they re-released it and with the issue fixed. Scooby-Doo Where Are You issue 7, released in 2011 by DC, was recalled due to an incidental advert. In the comic, an advertisement for Absolute V for Vendetta was featured, which wasn't in line with the age rating of the comic. In 2015, as a collaboration with the Comics King shop and with Tidewater Comic Con, a variant issue 1 of Spider-Man was released. I think it's widely believed the variant was recalled due to both the Marvel logo and Comics King logo being darkened. As in re-releases, the logos were brightened, but the recall is still kind of a mystery. In 2019, Supergirl issue 33 and Superman issue 14 was released and was recalled due to a printing error. On both the normal and variant issues of the Superman and Supergirl issue, the Years of the Villain Dark Gifts was the story tag, even though it wasn't the story featured in the comics. In the re-releases, they removed the tags from all 4 comics. Swamp Thing issue 11 was released in 2012 and was recalled due to a tentacle looking like a penis. I'm not even joking. I mean, if you look at it, it kind of does look like a dingling. In the re-releases, the penis tentacle was removed. When we were telling the story on Twitter, the author Scott Snyder said he got a call from his editor at a convention saying that the issue had to be pulled to look a dickish looking tentacle. Snyder later, for his birthday, got the original art page of the panel as a gift. Tanglewebbed issue 1 was released in 2001 by Marvel and was recalled for a printing issue. Just like the Mouse Guard comic, the wrong type of paper was used for the cover. It was printed on mantle cardstock, and on re-releases, it was printed with a glossier cover, fixing the issue. The original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles issue 4 was released in 1985, but in 1987, Mirage had a second printing of the issue with the new cover. But at the same time, they will release a new series called Tales of TMNT. So during printing, the covers for issue 4 and Tales of TMNT were mixed up, with TMNT issue 4 having the correct title and issue, but the wrong cover, instead having the cover for the Tales of TMNT. Mirage quickly noticed this and recalled the comic. Now, this is probably the most insane recall on the list, as it was a recall due to a hidden message found within the book. I'm not even joking. In 2001, Marvel released the Elseworld Spider-Man book titled Universe X Spidey. On page 28 of the book, on one of the panels, the artist Al Milgram included a secret message on the bookshelf. The spines of the book on the bookshelf, when turned, read, "Harris, ha ha ha, he's gone. Good riddance to bad rubbish. He was a nasty SOB." Yeah, Bob Harris was the former editor-in-chief for Marvel, and obviously the issue was recalled due to a slanderous remark. And apparently this was a rumor, so I don't know if it's true, but the artist was apparently fired and quietly rehired after a couple weeks. Now this is our first double recall, as recalledcomics.com calls it. In 1997, DC and Helix Comics released issue 12 of Vermilion. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Now, the first problem that happened with this comic book was a printing error, as the letter page was all written in Latin. So they recalled this issue and released a new one with the Latin removed. But another issue happened, another printing error, as the pages were out of sequence, with page 8 starting the book. So once again, this was recalled and released for a second time. So there are a total of 3 versions of this comic book, with 2 including errors. Pretty interesting. When creating Wolverine, issue 131, the original writer Todd DeZago, I think I pronounced that right, was frustrated with the editor Mark Powers as he kept changing the script. Due to this, DeZago pulled out of the issue and was replaced as a writer with Brian K. Vaughan. In the script, Powers, the editor, crossed out a word that Vaughan wrote and wrote "killer" on top of the cross out, making it kind of hard to read. Like if you get a paper and like cross out something and write another one on top of it, it's gonna be hard to read. So when the script was sent out to the letter, they couldn't make out what the word killer was. So when the issue was printed, an anti-Semitic slur was used instead of the word killer. Since the issue had writers pull out and some writers come in on short notice and stuff like that, the production wasn't able to proofread the issue, leading to this horrible error. But the recalled issue itself is still widely available. World Tree Issue 1 was released in 2023 by Image Comics and was recalled due to a printing error. The covers were darkened, making details hard to make out. Witches Issue 4 was released in 2015 by Image Comics, with the variant called the variant, I think that's how I pronounce it. The variant only had 1,000 copies produced, but was printed with the wrong issue number on the cover. It was recalled and re-released with the correct issue number. Only 69 recalled variants were sold, making it one of the rarer recalls. Now, that was our last recalled comic, but there are still a lot of comics that allowed voluntary returns, which I'm going to go over right now. Starting with The Adventures of Superman, issue 596. This comic depicted skyscrapers getting destroyed. The problem with the issue was that it was released the day after the 9/11 terrorist attacks, so DC announced that the issue would be returnable. In 2005, Image Comics released Conan and the Demons of King... I'm not going to try to pronounce that. Issue 3. As a joke, Tony Harris created a new cover for Conan 24, issue 24. And when promoting that issue 24 and Conan and the Demons, Death, the High Cost of Living, issue 3, was released in 1993 by DC and Vertigo. And when initially printed, the pages 19 and 12 were not facing each other. This mistake was fixed in newer releases. However, the issue was never recalled by DC. They just allowed returns. In 2006, to everyone's displeasure, Spider-Man Reign issue 1 was released by Marvel. And in the first issue, there was a panel showing that elderly Peter Parker's balls. Even though the balls weren't detailed, Marvel did think it was bad enough to issue an apology and offer returns. In later reprints of issue 1, they added a shadow over Peter's genitals. Venom Lethal Protector issue 1 was released in 1993 by Marvel, obviously. And on the cover, there was supposed to be red foil covering the background, but on some issues the foil didn't stick properly, making the backgrounds black or white. So the Marvel issue returns on the errored copies, and now the errored copies are worth pretty good money now. And that is all the comics we're going to talk about today. And yeah, this is a fun little video to make, seeing all the different recalls and the reasons for the recalls. Some I thought were ridiculous or like just funny, but also some were just shocking, like, oh my goodness, the penis. I'm honestly surprised there wasn't more recalls with how long comics have been, around. But yeah, this is a new, different kind of video. I don't know if I'm gonna stick with it. It's probably not gonna do good, let's be real. But yeah, and once again, I got all this information off of recallcomics.com and Wikipedia. And yes, Wikipedia is a trusted source.